Our special guest today, Mike Shoreman, first athlete to paddle across all five Great Lakes, our Canadian hero. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up. Today's guest hails from Toronto. He is an endurance athlete, former junior karate champion. He is the Paddle Canada advanced coach with a gold standard, an established author, motivational speaker, mental health leadership award winner, and the first athlete to successfully paddleboard across all five Great Lakes. Welcome to the program, Mike Shoreman. Mike, great
Thanks
to
for
have you here, my
thanks for
friend.
having me.
Thanks for
having
doing
me,
this.
Joe.
You're looking better than you did a couple of days ago when we first tried to do this.
You have some blackmail material on me.
You sent a picture and said, "Joe, look at me." Oh yeah, Mike, you're not looking too good. You're not looking too good. So, so yeah, we've been in contact with your name, and it's Mike Shoreman, and look what you do with the paddle boarding and everything else. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't it be Mike Offshoreman?
Yeah, no, I think the name lends itself to it very nicely. My dad keeps joking that I owe him royalties forever with that name. But no, it's funny that shore is part of the name, and I kept on trying to reach shore, all summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it certainly does fit, no doubt about it. Um, I want to talk about first of all the beginning. I'm looking at your bio, and it says, "I know you played hockey as a kid at Ted Reeve Arena. Sounds like everything was great at that particular time." And then 1996 Junior World Karate Champion. Let's talk about that a little bit. Your karate career.
Yeah, so it was, I actually went into karate because I was bullied in school. So my parents put me in karate as I think most importantly confidence builder, and to teach me that I was capable of defending myself in situations if need be, and karate is interesting because there's two kind of elements to it. There's, sparring, which is the actual fighting component of it. And then there's the kata, which is the actual discipline with all the artistic elements combined. So I did karate for a few years. And in 1996, the World Championships came up, and they were in Canada that year, and we entered, and I didn't expect to do anything really. In these competitions, they always call out at the end, the winners. And they always start, usually at fourth place, and then third place, and then second. And by the time I think it got to third place was announced, and then second, and I was like, oh, it's done. And then they announced my name, and the whole place went crazy. It was pretty cool moment. And then we decided, now's the time to retire.
I love it. Yeah. I was a boxer, right? So I did a lot of amateur boxing, and I remember that would be fun to just win a title and go up out on top. But the problem is you win an Alberta championship, then you're trying to win the Canadian championship, you're trying to win other championships, and it keeps going and going and going. But there's part of me going, I wonder if this will ever end. I'm always going to be chasing something. But
Yeah.
so this was the kata portion of it then, right? So this is the kata. This is the artistic portion
Yes.
of it, and something that you weren't expecting to win, obviously.
Yeah, no. So it's set up so that you're doing all the elements of your particular belt category in the formation of an I shape, the shape of an alphabetical I. Um, and and yeah, no, I did it, and I was just doing it for fun that day. I thought it was just something. I was just a youngster. I thought it was a lot of fun, and yeah, no, I wasn't expecting. I wasn't even thinking that I would place. Um, but but turned out that it was a big moment, and and yeah, no, it was very cool. It was very cool.
Yeah, that is great, and that is it is a good time to go out on the top for sure, no doubt about it, and that's what you remember from that part of your life, and it's great. Um, so it sounds like things in your life were pretty normal, I would say. I mean, you obviously had some great successes, and you had some great successes in paddleboarding as well. But uh, and then you were hit by disease Ramsay Hunt syndrome. Is that pretty much the way it was? Everything was normal, and then you were hit with that disease?
Yeah, so I was operating. I fell in love with the sport of paddleboarding. I fell into it accidentally. I took a lesson and I fell in love with it. And and then I got a board and I got a couple more boards. And then, all of a sudden you have five boards and you're looking at all of these thinking, I should be doing something with this. And I wanted to teach and I wanted to share what I loved about paddleboarding with other people and to build them up and watch them become good at it. And so I became certified with Paddle Canada and I taught professionally for several years. I was certified in Quebec and yeah, I set up shop in Toronto and I taught out of Cherry Beach. And what we used to do was I used to teach people in front of the Toronto skyline and give them kind of the full experience of Toronto at night. And it was kind of billed as date night, like the perfect date night.
Mm-hmm.
People would bring their dinner out, and we set that up, and it ran for several years, and I loved it. And then everything kind of changed in 2018. As you mentioned, I developed a neurological condition suddenly called Ramsay Hunt syndrome, which a lot of people will be familiar with from this summer from Justin Bieber. Uh, he announced in June that he was canceling his tour because he developed it. So Ramsay Hunt syndrome is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus as shingles, and it's specific in how it attacks. So it becomes Ramsay Hunt syndrome if it attacks either your eye or your ear. And it can attack your vestibular system, and it can present mild to severe um, problems, challenges, anything from tinnitus to not being able to walk. And unfortunately for me, in my case in 2018, it hit everything. So all the nerves in my face shattered, and it looked like I'd had a stroke. I I lost about 50% of my hearing, vision obstruction. I had to go through, speech therapy, physical rehabilitation to learn how to walk. And vertigo was and is still a big part of my condition. So I don't really like to turn my head from side to side very much.
Even still, there are still effects from it.
Yeah, so I'm affected by the barometric pressure. So when the air pressure changes, I feel it in my body. I am affected by in terms of exhaustion and in terms of um, migraines. I get really bad migraines from it, and that causes me to be physically sick, but less than it used to be.
So it's less than it used to be, but there's still lingering effects. And but when the disease hit, uh, in addition to the vertigo, the hearing, vision, mobility, everything, having to learn. There was a mental component too, which you talked about, and and I heard you talk about that, and that was kind of the part that really hit you the hardest, isn't it? Like that the mental component. Tell us about that part of your journey.
Yeah, I think from going from somebody being quite athletic, like when I was operating, I was on the water from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. every day from May until the end of September. I was very social. I was out and about doing what I loved, and suddenly I was unable to walk. My face had sunk in, and I didn't recognize what I looked like in the mirror anymore. So I became isolated. I lost my business, my income. I lost my social life, and my independence. I couldn't walk from my living room to the kitchen of my parents' home, and I needed them to look after me. So, and I didn't see a way out of it, because in the very early beginning stages, um, progress was happening very slowly. I couldn't see it, and I didn't know if there was progress being made at all, or how this was going to move forward. It was very scary. Um, and conversation, I was being sent, unfortunately in my case I was medically misdiagnosed. I missed a critical 72-hour window for treatment, to go on steroids, and I was being sent for MRIs to rule out brain damage. It was a very scary time, and I think with men especially, we had this tendency to say I'm fine. And I'm using a cane to walk, and I have an eye patch covering my eye to protect it from losing vision, and and I wasn't fine, but I was saying I was fine. And it just got to the point where I just felt like I can't go on like this anymore, and I don't want to. Um, so so yeah, it came to a head, and I was forced by my family, into treatment, and they gave me an ultimatum out of love, and I took it, and I went for a stay in a mental health treatment facility, and it was there that I was given the tools, and coping strategies that I didn't have previously. And it set me up on the road to recovery.
Yeah. So, as a recovered alcoholic, I understand the necessity for reaching out and asking for help, and reaching those bottoms when you think you keep trying to do it on your own, you keep trying to do it on your own, keep trying to do it on your own, keep trying to do it on your own, and then what happens to a lot of us, people with that's the type of mental illness as well, is that the bottom is sometimes suicide, right? And that's a frequent result. And so, you get to that point where your family forces you into making that decision. And before you make that decision, I remember for me, it's like I I'm gonna be able to figure this out eventually, but you never do, and it just gets worse, right? It just gets worse and worse and worse. And you think, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get this. I'm going to do this. I don't need help. I don't need help. And for some reason, our society kind of lends itself to that belief that somehow suck it up, pull up your socks, pull up your bootstraps, and do this because you can. But you know what?
Yeah.
On our own, we can't. And you talked about isolation, which makes it worse, right? Um,
Yeah.
People like Gabor Mate talk about addiction. The opposite of addiction isn't like non-addiction. The opposite of addiction is connection. So we lose that connection in our self-loathing, our self-centeredness, and our self disgust, whatever it is. We lose that in ourselves, and we don't reach out for help, and until we have to, and then when we have to, things can change. So that's a beautiful thing that things you were able to get to that point. You also, a couple of years ago, you released the book "Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder: Crash and Rise from Victim to Thriving Survivor." Why did you feel it was important to write this book?
I had it was interesting. I came out of um, that time in 2019, spending time in that treatment facility. And this was about 6 months after everything had happened um, physically. And I was just kind of coming to terms. And I kind of saw at that point that as I came out of that mental health treatment facility with a lot of confidence restored that was lost. And from there, opportunities and doors just kept on opening. In that, before, when I had my paddleboarding business, I positioned myself within the Toronto market. Paddleboarding is huge in Toronto. There were so many businesses. And so one of the things that I did was I called up the Canadian Safe Boating Council. They always do media demonstrations on the Victoria Day long weekend in partnership with the Ontario Provincial Police. And I called them up and I said, you need a paddleboarding guy to do demonstrations. And they said, yeah, we do. And I said, okay, I think I should be that guy for you. So I quickly took that spot, and and I built my business that way. I became, I was all over the news. People found me that way, and I built up my business very quickly. And through all of what happened, I didn't tell everybody what was going on, but a few weeks after I got out of that mental health treatment facility, I got an email from the Canadian Safe Boating Council saying, we've got our thing coming up. Will you do water safety demonstrations? And I didn't tell them what happened, but I did bring in other people to do it, and I kind of passed the torch to them that day. But it put me back on the water. When all the media vans pulled away, I was there with my friends who had paddleboards, and I got on the paddleboard for the first time again. Doctors said that I wouldn't be able to. But I lasted a few minutes sitting down, and I used incremental wind building over the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks. The first time I was on the water for 3 minutes, and then that went to 5 minutes, and then it went to seven, and then I was on the water for half an hour, and then slowly an hour. Um, and then that summer, a friend sent me this thing called Speaker Slam. And I didn't know what it was, but it turns out it's North America's largest inspirational speech competition. And I'd never given a speech before in my life, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I thought, okay, we'll do this. And I thought, okay, if I can uplift a few people in a room of 400, with the story of getting back on our paddle boards when we're knocked off them, kind of like getting back up on the horse. Maybe it'll be cathartic for me, and maybe it'll be good for somebody else. And anyways, that speech went viral that night. it won, and it went viral and it got millions of views. And Ashton Kutcher shared it, and a bunch of people, crazy people, shared it, and it gave me this platform that I wasn't expecting, and I didn't really know what to do with. And it connected me with people from all around the world who were watching this talk, who were, I was talking about mental health and getting back up when we're knocked down. And I thought, I did a 6 minute speech. There's much more than a 6 minute speech. There's a book here. And so I started writing, and in 2020, the book came out.
That's crazy. That's really, really cool how things come together like that. Uh, so you talked about being cathartic, and did you find that that was the case? I mean, so you had some. It sounds like you had some life changing moments, and like reestablishing life moments, and maybe getting back in the paddleboard, maybe doing this talk, maybe writing this book. Is it a combination of those things that help you get to where you are today?
I think so. I think, throughout all of this, what I've done, without really even realizing it in the very beginning, was taking one win and leveraging that for my next one. So getting mental health treatment led me to getting back on the paddleboard. Getting on the paddleboard led me to doing a talk about getting on the paddleboard. That speech led me to writing a book and then launching it. And then from that, everything has just kind of happened organically.
So, what do you say to people who have run into difficulties with health and other things, and are in that depressed state now? You tell them that what?
Well, I tell them to rely on their support networks and to not shut them out. I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned from my own experience, was that I thought that I was a burden on people, and I thought I was letting them down, and ultimately that they would be better off without me, and that's not the case. And that was a hard lesson to learn. And things we live in a very troubled, trying, dark world at times, and it can be very dark, even for people who mentally are good day to day. But we need the people in our life, like our support networks, our greatest supports, and those are the people that will lift us up.
And I guess just to add to that too is that you talk about sometimes the world can seem like a dark place, but it has to do with our perception as well. And if you just watch the news all day long, you're in some type of news cycle. It can make you think that the world is a very dark place. And of course, to me, it's like I like to surround myself with positive people who have a positive outlook, and there are lots of those who help me to have a different perspective of the world and life in general. So that's really important. People like yourself are inspirational. And that's awesome that Ashton Kutcher took your story and shared it, because I
Crazy.
think yeah, that's so cool. And but that's the inspiration is there, and it hits us in the field sometimes, and sometimes it's good to it's good to go there and have that feeling. But there's a lot of kind things we can do. You know, I was had Sarah Nurse on the show, and we were talking about the Chevrolet Good Deeds Cup, and it's just like these are good deeds we can always just do. You know, the world's a
Yeah.
better place when we're looking for ways to be to other people, and that's just there's just other ways to look at the world. Which when you're in a dark, deep, dark place, it's hard to see it, but there is another way. Sometimes we just have to stay, and we're going to find out, and we're going to eventually find that out. Just have to get through this tough time right now. So in in 2021, you tried crossing Lake Ontario, and you're moving in. What made you think that idea to try to cross Lake Ontario?
So when that speech went viral, I started getting approached by news media outlets in Canada, wanting to talk about my experience and cover the story. And I was doing all these different interviews at the time, and at the same time, I'd found this organization called Jack.org, which is Canada's national youth mental health charity. And it just popped up on my Instagram one day. There was this guy wearing this shirt, and it said, "This is what a mental health advocate looks like." And I thought, oh, I want to support these guys. I want to get this shirt and help. The funds from that shirt were going to help um, put mental health programs in schools and in communities in every province and territory across Canada. And I like that. Um, I felt um, I felt in alignment with it because of where I went in my mental health journey, especially with not being able to take care of myself, needing help. I needed help bathing. I needed help going to the grocery store. Um, so I felt almost childlike. And so I identified with children and youth struggling with their mental health. So I contacted Jack.org and I said, look, this is what's going on. I did this talk, it went viral. I'm doing these media appearances. How can we leverage this to help your organization? And they said, well, what would you like to do for us? And I said, well, we could do a number of things, but if you want me to help in some way, we can do that. And so I held an event. And the first event, I was hoping that 20 paddleboarders were going to come out and go paddleboarding with me. And it turned into 200 paddleboarders from all across Ontario. And then the next year, I was hoping to build on that. And we'd raise a lot of money, and it would help them. And then COVID hit, and we were about to go into a lockdown in Toronto. And I think about 35 people showed up. We were days from going into a lockdown, and there was a lot of fear in the air. And and it was a good time, but I left feeling like this had really, kind of squashed everything. And so I had a debrief with them following that event, and I said, okay, we need to pandemic proof this, and this needs to become something newsworthy to get the attention of people so that they will donate and so that they will help your organization. And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I think I'll become the first person with disabilities to go from one country to another on a paddleboard. And we decided that I was going to go from New York State to Toronto in 2021. And yeah, so we set that up, and I went into it. I kind of ran into it without realizing all of the elements that were going to be needed, and it was going to become a 3-day crossing. It would have become the longest crossing of Lake Ontario in Canadian history. It was going to go from Rochester all the way to Toronto, and it was going to be about 140 kilometers. And on the second day, a hurricane went up the East Coast, hitting New Jersey, and that triggered 9-foot waves on Lake Ontario. So I was watching
Whoa.
my support boats go up and then come crashing down uh, all day. And I didn't know this, but they were violently ill on that boat. And then eventually it was called for their safety and for my safety. And we came back by boat, and we met all the people in Toronto, all the media. I had to make a statement. It was very emotional.
Mhm.
Not announcing that we set out to accomplish so much, but we couldn't get the job done in the way that I'd hoped, and that I was going to take some time to think about um, what we were going to do next, but we would be back.
And so it's back to the drawing board after that first attempt, and you came back with another plan. I couldn't make it
Yeah,
across one lake, but I'm going to do five. Okay. Yeah, good on you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember when I first publicly announced it. The feedback, um, so some of the Canadian media was pretty rough with me at first. They were like, "Yeah, we'll see how that goes." And I was initially very angry, because I was like, "This is for kids." Um, I didn't understand it, but I see where their line of thought was now. But yeah, no, I went to my boat captains and I said, what was accomplished out there? We were going to do 140 kilometers. What did we do? And they said, you did 71. And I thought, okay. So then I went to Google, and I started looking up swimmers, and I looked up Vicky Keith.
Hmm.
And she swam across all the Great Lakes in 1988. And I started looking at, her routes and her distances and what she did. And I saw that the two longest crossings that she did were Lake Huron and were Lake Michigan, and they were 73 and 76. And I thought, okay, well, we did 71 on Lake
Hmm.
Ontario. We just went the wrong way on Lake Ontario. Um, so so we need to plan this out better. I need to train a lot more, and we need to build a monster team that will execute this properly. And that kind of began, the crossings began in May of 2022. The planning began in October of 2021.
So for those of you, for those folks watching who don't understand the geography here, so you were the first time in 2021. Rochester is probably parallel to Kingston, like it's a very
Yeah.
eastern part of Lake Ontario, and now you're coming down to the very western part of Lake Ontario. It is a really long route to get across Lake Ontario, and could have done that a lot easier. And of course, and you did. But we're going to get to that because we're going to go through your trip now. We're going to start off with your first leg, which is the trip across Lake Erie. Let's talk about that. And Vic, if you can roll some of that video, here we are. So this took you 7.5 hours. Now you can hear
Yeah.
someone encouraging you to keep it up. They were saying you're flying. Now who was that? Tell us about your team.
So I had two boats with me that day. I had a big boat, and then I had a smaller support boat. That smaller support boat was a close friend of mine. Every 30 minutes, they would stop. They would blow a whistle. I'd come over, and they'd hand me a shake with water and carbohydrate powder. So I was being fed every 30 minutes throughout each of the crossings. Um, but yeah, no, I had a big, I probably the biggest team of all of the crossings was on that first crossing. And yeah, no, that was the Vicky Heath said this is going to be the warm up. This is going to be the tester. Um, but it was interesting being out there. You're going from New York all the way into Crystal Beach. Um, to the right of me, I could see Buffalo. And you don't visually take in what you think you're actually much closer than you are. I
Hmm.
kept on saying, "Okay, we're going to be there in 2 hours," and we weren't. And we kept on getting pulled off track with currents that day. Um, so it was a good warm up.
Yeah, 7.5 hour warm up, pretty good. So you reached land at Crystal Beach, and I know what you mean by perception. Right here, you are reaching land at Crystal Beach, first person to take a paddleboard from Canada to the U.S. And how are you feeling at this stage?
I'm feeling relieved that it's done, and pretty happy. I Yeah, no, I felt this was used as the confidence builder, so that you always start with the small. I think, I think kind of like figure skaters, like you do like a warm up jump and then you go into your big ones,
Hmm.
um, and this one kind of set the tone, and also a lot of learning lessons. Um, One, I was going to the bathroom, while I was out there on my board. These are marathons, and in that one particularly, um, I changed very fast, but I would hop off the board and go into the water, and I'd hang off the board like this, and my team, I'd tell them to turn around because I was going to go to the
Hmm.
bathroom, and then I'd have to tell them to be quiet because I needed to concentrate. And then I realized, I don't have time to be doing this every 10, 12 minutes. That was a learning lesson. And I was just going to have to go as I was going. But yeah, no, a lot of learning lessons in that one, but really relieved that it was finished.
Yeah, it reminds me. You talked about the perception that Buffalo's right there. Yeah, I remember it reminds me of golfing in the mountains. Like being in Banff, and
Yeah.
I'm at the tee deck, and I think, if I really connect with a good drive here, I can probably bounce it off the mountain onto the fairway. I mean, because it looks so close, but it's like miles away, but it looks like it's right there. So
Yeah.
I know that your perception changes when you're out there. So now you're on to Lake Huron, the second stop. Okay, so that is a big lake. All you see here is
That is,
open water. Did you feel at times that like you weren't even going anywhere? Did it seem like that?
yeah. So this lake was probably Lake Huron and Lake Michigan were both really rough for me. This one, the weather changed probably 5 different times while we were out there. The sky would open up and the sun would be there, and then suddenly it would get very cold, and we'd have to put layers on me, and I had to put on a winter hat. Um, this was the first overnight crossing. Um, the temperature at night got really cold. I was wearing 2 winter hats. I was wearing winter gloves. I put on a hoodie and then a winter coat on top of my wetsuit. Um, this was the big one. At times, this was the first one that we went through the night. We started at 6 a.m. in the morning, um, and then we went all day, and then through the night, into the sunset, into the dark, into the next day. Um, And yeah, no, this was the one that I got very emotional with.
Hmm. So after the warm up Lake Erie, now you're going. You're talking about 28 and a half hours later when you reached Godrich. And at that point, it looked like you could barely stand up, and you talked about being emotional. It's yeah.
Yeah, no, the so we did have a medical emergency on that crossing. The Canadian Coast Guard came out to just check that I was okay. There was a situation with how I was going to the bathroom. So I was just going in, and what was happening was it was going down my wetsuit, and it
Hmm.
was catching in my boots. And when you're swimming, your feet prune. Um,
Hmm.
my feet pruned so much that I couldn't stand on them for the last 10 hours, because it was so painful. Um, but no, I had an amazing team. We took off. I took off my wet boots eventually, and had them dry, and we actually put, I think, my Walmart bags on top of them. And yeah, no, it was a big relief to get that one done. That was kind of the one that said, okay, it's on for the rest of them.
Well, I guess you can do anything now. How long does it take to get now to Lake Superior to get the next to start the next lake?
So we were actually supposed to do Lake Michigan next. Unfortunately, with the weather, it was just impossible. Lake Michigan was uncooperative. So I made the decision. I told the team, okay, let's pack up, let's get in the car, and let's go. And so we drove to Wisconsin, which was just under 20 hours. Took 3 days. Um, Me being in the car is a little bit tricky for that amount of time, so we decided to break it up into three days to get there. And we were going to cross from Wisconsin into the state of Minnesota, and it was wild. We crossed over by Sudbury, um, and and right over the border is the Great Lakes Shipping Museum. So we stopped at the museum, and and I'm realizing, like, we shouldn't be seeing this if we're going to cross Lake Superior. Like, there's the bell from the Edmund Fitzgerald. There's the bell from the
Right.
Edmund Fitzgerald, and we're going to go across this thing. But um,
Yeah.
but it was pretty cool to see, what Lake Superior can do. And even in the night before, um, I had support crews that were out there surfing on Lake Superior, and they said, you're going to go to bed, and all these waves are going to go, and it's going to be really flat tomorrow, and it's going to be our window. We're going to have about 10 hours, and you're just going to make a run for it. And we did, and we were forecasting that it was going to take about 15 hours, but the wind was at my back for this one, and it was pushing us. And we arrived in 8 hours. We arrived 7 hours early.
Wow. So 8 hours is a nice lot better than 15. And now Lake Superior, when you think of it, yeah, you think of the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald and Gordon Lightfoot, and yeah, it's a scary lake, big cold lake, but it turned out to be much the easiest. And here you go, we're landing in Minnesota, Rocky Shore. Oh, number
Yeah,
three, way to go, baby, number three.
number number three. Yeah, no, people ask me what my favorite crossing is all the time. Lake Superior is very special, and I think that's just because of the history. The Edmund Fitzgerald and the stories of it. Also, the way that I was received, and my team, when we drove to Wisconsin, and even when we got into Wisconsin, and then when we arrived in Minnesota, the way that we were received, and I didn't really expect that as a Canadian, but it was very special.
Speaking of which, we just saw the Canadian flag there, and you just posted recently. I was advised during the third crossing superior between two U.S. between the U.S. and but the guy because the American media wouldn't be following you again, wouldn't be interested if you flew the Canadian flag, but apparently that wasn't the case, and you really wanted to make a statement that a Canadian got this done, right?
Yeah, no, I thought, this is the first time that the Great Lakes are all going to be done on a paddleboard consecutively in one summer. I thought it was important that this be remembered, that this, a Canadian did this. And yeah, no, I was advised, the American networks aren't really going to probably pay attention to a Canadian. And no, all the local affiliates, the ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, they were all there. CBS took it national, and that was the crossing that kind of got the attention of Jan Arden and Rick Hansen, Michael Landsberg, Arlene Dickinson, federal members of parliament across the country. And it's kind of when everything kind of kicked off. So yeah, no, I'm glad that I put up the flag. I was told not to put up a flag, but I thought no, I'm a Canadian, and I want this to be remembered as this being done by a Canadian and by a Canadian team.
Right on. Perfect. Okay, next up, Michigan. This time we got some great night. Is that a miner's light you're wearing?
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is actually interesting. Like Huron, I couldn't see across to the other side. Lake Superior, we couldn't see across only because of the dense fog
Fog.
that we were in all day. With this one, I could see, to the other side of Lake Michigan. I could see Chicago. I could see one building, and then one building became three buildings, and then it became five buildings. And then by the time that the sun was going down that day, I could see the outline of the city, and we were about roughly 12 hours from making landfall when the sun went down. Um, Lake Michigan, the nighttime was, it was a rough crossing, but it was really cool. We saw some ships that were out there. We went through some big shipping lanes, and yeah, no, it was pretty spectacular to arrive in Chicago.
27 and a half hours. Sees you come ashore in Chicago. Now this is by this time 4 lakes under your belt, and it must have felt pretty tiring.
Yeah, I was very tired. We'd scheduled the final crossing of Lake Ontario for August the 13th, that week, if the weather would be cooperative. My team decided that we were going to delay it an extra week to 10 days, to give my body more rest. Because it's 5 marathons back to back, and
Mm-hmm.
my body was done. But yeah, no. Going into the Lake Ontario one, I was very, um, you know, I had four under my belt, but in the back of my mind, I still remember 2021 and what happened out there.
Right.
So in the media, I kept on making statements like, I'm happy with how things have gone. And,
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens. You know, I wanted it to happen. But no, those were, yeah, no, that was, definitely top of mind. I'd been through, I know what can happen on these lakes. And getting through four, I was extremely lucky. There are swimmers who try to swim across one lake, and they try to do it multiple times in one season because they can't make it across because of the weather, because anything can happen out there. But no, very, very excited, and very, very anxious about that last
Mm-hmm.
crossing.
Okay, so you embark on that last journey, the last leg, fifth and final leg. Takes you 21 and a half hours to get across. Uh, and you mentioned you're feeling pretty beat up by this time. Uh, and what kept you going? What was it that you said to yourself? I got to do this.
So I actually think that the Lake Ontario crossing was probably the easiest of all the crossings, in that the weather was the best of all of them. The only time it really acted up out there was the very end, coming into Toronto, maybe the last hour. Um, but we had great weather, for that crossing. That evening, there were a few situations, that happened out on the water. One, I was sick on the water for the first time. I started throwing up, and we were worried,
Hmm.
because when you start losing um, your nutrition, you start fading very, very quickly. So that was a little bit of a concern. And we also had a visitor. We had a bat, that started circling our boat, and I think they were all panicking and freaked out. I think I was just tired and not a bat. Yeah,
Wow.
so I kept on
Wow.
circling and swooping down. Um, and yeah, so that was interesting. We had a visitor. But yeah, no, it was, coming into the harbor, um, the weather picked up, um, and we just fought through it. And I just remembered thinking, this is the very end. And I knew that, like my mental health journey, I was going to come out of this eventually. And it, nothing lasts forever. So, so yeah, so we entered the Toronto Harbor, and we were met by the Toronto Marine Police Unit, sent out, a fleet of boats, the Canadian Coast Guard, the Marine Fire Brigade, a bunch of paddleboarders and kayakers were there, yeah, it was a pretty crazy day.
Okay, so well, this Mike, back on shore, they're setting up for your arrival, and when you get there, there's a massive crowd that has assembled. How did you feel when you saw that?
So, I was very overwhelmed, by the response on the water, by the response on land, by people. You know, I was also very tired. This wasn't just a 21-hour crossing. I was probably up for 8 or 9 hours before that crossing. So, being up for 30 hours and then doing something so physical, and then, getting there, and then having cameras in your face, it was a lot. But no, I remember it very vividly. And I remember the people that were there, and the hugs, and seeing people, and my mom, and my dad, and my friends, and just people who wanted to come out and support, and yeah, no, it was very it meant a lot.
Mike, you talked about, having your mom and dad there to greet you, and friends and everything else all there to greet you. But another person who was there to greet you was Mayor Hazel McCallion, who we lost recently. Tell us about meeting Mayor Hazel.
So, I have, throughout all of this, the crossing started in May. I began gathering support across the province of Ontario probably in February. I traveled to, I'm going to say 23 different cities across Ontario, and I met with 23 different mayors. And I asked for their support behind the scenes, and the support of their city councils in advance. So everywhere from Niagara to Toronto to Barrie, all the way to Ottawa. So it was amazing to have that support, but to have Hazel McCallion show up at the final crossing, um, you know, very special. She was 101, and
Mhm.
and she thought that this deserved to have her attention, and that's a big honor. And no, it was very special to me, and to the organization, and to the people that were supporting it, and very cool. I got to have a butter tart with her, which was my first solid food when I got on tour. It's probably one of my favorite butter tarts of all time, and yeah, no, she's a big part of this story, and she was a force. We will miss her very much.
We lost another champion of inclusion recently too, in David Onley, and I know he was a big supporter of yours. So it's been a tough little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, I feel like there's been a lot of loss with these crossings, in that there were a lot of people who supported them who aren't here anymore. In September, we learned, when I crossed Lake Huron, I was greeted on shore by Mayor John Grace of Goderich. And at the end of the summer, he died quite tragically on Lake Superior. Um, and and then David Onley, who had his hand in orchestrating political support for this, his passing, that happened, and then Hazel, and yeah, no, it's been quite interesting. I didn't really, when you do these things, I guess what happens is you have amazing people rally around you, and you get to know them, and they get to know you, and and that's part of it, and it's very special. But to lose three quite quickly is it's been challenging.
For your work, you received accolades from coast to coast. Rick Hansen, of course, mayors, politicians. You touched on that, and a letter of congratulations from Prime Minister Trudeau. That must be pretty cool. Is that kind of the capper?
Yeah, I'm actually heading to Ottawa the week after next to meet him in person, um, which which is very cool that has been set up, and that has happened. That this has been acknowledged by the Legislative Assembly of Ontario and the House of Commons, and by the Prime Minister's office is very special. I think, this is This was to raise funding and awareness for mental health programs for kids and for youth across Canada. And this is being acknowledged and recognized is very nice for the organization. It sends a message to the people that the organization supports, and to me it's a big, and to me and my team it's a very big honor.
Now there's a documentary soon to be released. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I had a film crew. A lot of that footage that you showed earlier was taken by the film crew that was following me. My life has been followed for the last 10 months. The cameras have now stopped rolling, which is kind of nice. But yeah, no, they've been following my journey across the lakes and examining the Canadian mental health crisis. So we set out to get interviews with all the leading mental health organizations across Canada, CAMH, Talk Suicide Canada, Sick Not Weak with Michael Landsberg, who's featured in the film, a number of them. And we'll be talking, about the mental health crisis and where Canada falls short, and what can be done to make the situation better. It is a call to action, and it's a 90-minute feature that will premiere in August, September. And it will run in film festivals probably across Canada and the United States beginning this summer.
Wow. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that, Mike. Like you've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars through your galas and everything else you've done that a lot of people don't know about that piece of it. For mental health, for youth and disability support programs. I want to just say that, this is awesome, the work you've done. I can't wait for the documentary, and I can't wait for the next piece in Mike Shoreman's, journey. If you want to follow Mike, he's available on Twitter at Mike Shoreman, Instagram, Mike_Shoreman, LinkedIn, Mike Shoreman. And I want to say, Mike, thank you. Congratulations for all your accomplishments. And thank you for taking the time to join us here today. You are a true Canadian hero, and it's been great having you on.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and always nice to chat with you, Joe.
Say hi to your mom.
Number one fan.
All right. Thanks, buddy. We'll have more.
Okay.
Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Excuse me. Have you heard of the new Divot app?
There's a Divot app?
No, but there is a divot. And we're going to have to do something about that. It's simple. Just pick up the divot and replace it. All sorted. Have a good round. Visit moregolf.ca. You'll find everything a golfer could need, from balls, gloves, clubs, custom fitting opportunities, training gear, valuable accessories, and some great deals. Looking for that perfect gift idea for the golfer in your life? Go to moregolf.ca today. My Costa Swiss pick of the week. 2 weeks ago, I picked our Hot Toddy in the 8th at Mohawk. Unable to hold that lead. This time out, I went with Bella Cavella in the 9th with our Hot Toddy in the Exacta. Unfortunately, Bella Cavella had an early break, but our Hot Toddy did not disappoint. Coming from well off the pace, found some room between horses to win at 11-1. Bob McClure drove for Stephen Bossens. The 271 trifecta paid $1,270.60. Bella Cavella rallied for 5th, but was placed 8th. This week, call me stubborn, but I like Bella Cavella to get it done in Thursday night's 4th race at Mohawk. This time, she won't break from the 4-post. James McDonald drives for Rick Moreau. I like to throw in a 2-4-10 Exacta and trifecta box. For all the racing updates, visit Costa TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. This is the Excellent Sports Adventure, brought to you by Lycom. Well, did you think that the Maple Leafs were done trading? Wrong. The Buds have made another sizable acquisition. They get defenseman Jake McCabe and forward Sam Lafferty from Chicago for a conditional first-round pick in 2025 and a second-rounder in 26. The key here is McCabe, a solid stay-at-home defender with the very low salary cap hit. I love the deal. Leafs trying to hang on to second spot in the Atlantic Division. Wild in town, William Nylander with a steal. And check out the hands on this guy, like stick handling in a phone booth. Nylander with his 33rd goal of the season. Leafs over Mini 2-1. The Leafs get open a 5-game road trip in Seattle. A Mariner carries in, takes a return feed from Michael Bunting. Mitchie Marner with a sweet feed in front for Austin Matthews. Matthews with the pair. Marner with 3 helpers. Leafs spanked the Kraken 5-1.
I thought tonight, just as a line, as a team, after we gave up the first goal, I thought we really just dialed in our game and, throughout the rest of the game, got ourselves a good lead there after the first, and we were able to kind of fend off their push there in the second and close it down in the third period. So, I thought a lot of really good areas for us tonight in our game.
Is this Mitch at his best right now? What are you seeing from him?
Yeah, he's dialed in. You can just see it every game. I mean, he just makes unbelievable plays. He's got great poise, and he's just a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to play with, and we just want to continue to keep this going throughout this road trip. Like I said, it's definitely an important one.
A battle between 2 Canadian clubs in Montreal. Derek Brassard feeds back to Travis Hamonic. Hamonic's blast redirected by Austin Watson sends sink to Habs 5-2. Oilers rally from 4 goals down against the Blue Jackets. Furious pressure. Brett Kulak gives to Connor McDavid a rocket. McDee's second of the game, 48th of the season. Tie game, but the Oil let it slip away. The Jackets prevail 6-5. As if his season wasn't already amazing enough, Linus Ullmark has joined a very elite group. Ullmark, the 16th goalie in NHL history to score a goal. The 29-year-old leads all net minors in wins, goals against average, save percentage, and now goals. The odds-on favorite to win the Vezina Trophy. Another big weekend for the Toronto Six. We waltzed into Minnesota, knocked out the Whitecaps. Teresa Venizova bangs it home on a goalmouth scramble. Elaine Chuli made 36 saves, 6 over the Caps, 1-0. The next day, they throttled the Caps 7-1. Well, the Raptors seem to be finding their stride at just the right time, facing the Pistons in Motown. Have a look at this move by Pascal Siakam. That almost broke some ankles. T Skills with a phenomenal play and a foul. Siakam with 29. Scotty Barnes up to Gary Trent Jr. for 3 of his 19. Raps win for the 7th time in 8 games, 95-91, but they got thumped in Cleveland. Fred VanVleet returns this week after becoming a dad for the 3rd time. Toronto FC let one slip away in the season opener. The Reds led DC United 2-1 late in this game in injury time, but DC scored twice in injury time to pull it out. Theodore Kudupietro scored the winner for the host side 8 minutes into the extra time, his first MLS goal. The Grapefruit League season is underway, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. showed no signs of rust. Vlad lamb-basted this David Bednar offering 432-foot laser. Rookie hopeful Addison Barger, Santiago Espinal also went deep. Yusei Kikuchi had a couple awesome innings, striking out 5. Everyone seems to be raving about the new rules to speed up play. Tommy Fury over Jake Paul? Well, you can't say I didn't tell you so. As a matter of fact, I did tell you so. I made that prediction about a month and a half ago. I said that Fury's experience and boxing skills would shine through. His jab was sharp. He had the edge in speed. He snuck in some nice uppercuts in that right-hand lead. Now, as expected as well, Jake had the edge in power. In fact, he dropped Fury in the 8th round, although that probably could have been called a slip. And I told you that the fight would go the distance and that Fury would walk away with the decision. And there's just enough controversy to make you think they'll probably do it again in about 6 months' time, and we'll probably watch. All right, Sarah Mitten is on top of the world. The 26-year-old from Liverpool, Nova Scotia, who trains in Toronto, threw a personal best and meet record 19.76 meters to capture the women's shot put title at the World Indoor Tour Athletics Championships in Madrid, Spain. That's one strong gal, no doubt about that. Let's hear it for Dave Pelishok, our old pal, who had an ace on 16 at Clearwater, a golf club in Florida. Nice shot from Don Marshall here as well at El Tigre.
God damn it.
4!
Don Marshall from Regina. Shot the green. He'll be putting for birdie. Today's environmental tip: plant a tree. Trees produce oxygen and improve air quality. Trees take in carbon dioxide and store harmful carbon. Trees prevent soil erosion and help lessen flooding. Trees lower temperature by providing shade and cooling water evaporation. Rycom, passionate people who turn complicated business problems into simplified technology solutions for public and private sector real estate, properties, portfolios, and enterprise customers. Optimize and future-proof smart buildings from the ground up. The latest in fault locating, base building network design, managed services, cybersecurity, data analytics. Our fault detection will support all smart strategies, define projected outcomes for capital planning, and reduce environmental impact. Rycom, smart protection solutions. At Rycom, we're building a path to a smart and environmentally friendly future.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. We highly recommend them all. We want to thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. And a reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and Buzz TV Live. You also really want to check out our YouTube channel. Past shows are available there, weekly sportscasts, shorts, all kinds of cool segments. Like and subscribe, folks. It's absolutely free. Thanks once again to Mike Shoreman for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and over-deliver. Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.